Well, I literally don't have any idea what I'm doing. I have no idea why I want to do this, except for I called you last Friday. Mm-hmm. A little buzzed.
A lot of buzz.
Come on.
Pretty buzzed. You were
soon.
quite buzzed.
Too soon to be teasing me for my tendencies on Friday evenings.
You were hilarious.
But it actually, yeah,
and insightful.
But it was so I was so stoked, man. I was so genuinely stoked, and like every time somebody has a successful Kickstarter campaign, my baked in response to it now, because I've been on both sides of that, either been part of helping somebody with assets, with strategy, with product development, for lack of a better description.
Yeah.
I've been on both sides of it, seeing people like not do well and seeing people do really well. I'll get into that in a second. So I'll kind of do a little intro. Whoever sees this will probably know who I am, but and whoever sees might know who you are too. But Zach is a OG member of Fellow, which is worth noting.
That's true.
You were like number 4 or 5. You and
gosh, was I that early?
Yeah, you and
the crew,
Gaia and Mark Simons and Chatham.
Oh wow,
yeah.
I had no idea.
Back in December 2013, before I was even officially part of Fellow, me and Luke lost touch with each other for a month, and all of a sudden I find out he's subletting a space from Josh Song, and I was like, okay, I guess we're doing this. Sounds kind of fun. I'll do it. But so you were OG member Fellow, and then you and I around the same time were having ideas of starting our own companies.
Yep, starting our own firms.
Yep, exactly. One of which became Treatment. Our company, agency, and one of which became a creative development studio called Auxiliary, and that's you. But you bounced from that, which you told me recently, or not bounced from it, but you are no longer CEO. You're not
that's right,
running the ship or whatever. But then you started this company called Cursed Crypt.
That's right.
And the first product,
beautiful enunciation.
I'm gonna nail all this, I hope. And then your first product that you guys made for this company is called the Mimics Grid, which we're staring at, and I'm gonna get into that in a second.
So is this our intro?
It will be, but okay. I'm gonna set it up just to tell people everybody who cares to watch this how I ended up calling you on Friday and was we have to talk because this is awesome.
You can get into INT if you want. I don't know if it has value. And
but you also run a nonprofit technology based
it's a
group.
Pretty much, it's a
totally inclusive group. Yeah, Inland Northwest Technologists.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you did this Kickstarter for this new product, for this new business, for this new undertaking, enterprise. Right. And like I said, I've seen both sides of it, but when I called you, when I first saw it posted to Facebook, I was like, man, geez, I hope it works. Because again, from memory, I'm like...
I felt the same way.
I'm sure you did. From what you said on Friday, you did feel that way. Yeah. And I thought, and once it started to do really well, and then I was like, wait a minute, they you had half of your goal within a few days, and I was like, this is all the things that you really need to see from the algorithm that Kickstarter uses, which nobody exactly knows what the formula is, but it's there are some kind of well-known things. One of them is you have to kind of typically, anyways, I'm going to talk about some of the typical things that I know, and then you can tell me everything I don't know. Earned media plan of knowing who's going to be writing stories about you, whether it's local news, hopefully you get a couple national bloggers, you get some influencers, people on Twitter, people on wherever, social media.
Typical strategy.
Talking about you, or you go down and you validate your idea in some market, at a con or whatever. Yeah. So one of our local success stories, Dice Throne, those guys went down to PAX. That's Nate Chatelier, Manny Tremblay. They went down and they crushed it because they had a ton of people who were already day one, we know we're buying it.
Yeah, he said, Manny himself said that was essentially what kicked off their success, was PAX. Just turn it over overnight.
But then you told me, and this is why I think our conversation was so shocking and hilarious to me, was you were no, we didn't do any of that. And as far as you can tell, as we sit here, and you stated a goal, you guys set a goal for your campaign to sell $30,000 worth of pre-sales on this product.
That's right.
Various tiers. And as of the time of us talking, you have 9 days left.
Yeah, we've got 10 days left, and we're at 185% of our goal.
And at $55,000, I think,
we're
when I last
55,
looked.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop there and go, tell me what it is.
Okay.
And then how on earth did it get to where, tell me a little bit about what happened with the Kickstarter campaign and how it got where it's going. Starting with what it is. What is this thing?
Sure. How about I step back a little bit further even?
You step back as far as you want.
We have, so at Auxiliary, we work as a team quite a bit, sharing each other's code, designing together, ideating together, and I'm always trying to find new ways to kind of pick off interesting approaches to get people into doing new and interesting teamwork exercises. And I had this D&D starter kit that I had purchased for my kids, and my kids are like, "Oh, Dad, we're already playing that at school." And I said, "Okay." So I brought it back to the office, and the team jumped right into it.
You're talking about 5th edition, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, the edition right now, yeah.
Exactly.
And my team got excited, and we jumped right into it. And as soon as we started playing, I had this feeling that there was something else that was missing. And I mean, this game's been around for, 47 years or something like that.
Back to the old Gary Gygax days.
Oh, yeah, way back TSR era. And there was just more there that we could do. And so I actually built this little piece of electronics that does some cool stuff first, as just to see if I could make something. And it worked out great. And then I went to Penny Arcade 6 months from that period of time, and I watched people around the tabletop booths it was constant. There weren't lines, there were crowds the entire time I was there.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away by the marketplace, and so I went back to the hotel and I wrote a business plan that night. I laid in bed with my phone over my head and just typed out a business plan super fast.
What were you noticing that made you think this is like, assuming that you had a proto vision for what ended up being the Mimics Grid, like what were you seeing at these tables that you were like going, I need to do something?
Yeah, so effectively they were cruising around with, they have, pardon me, they have these guys, these tactiles or roll-up mats. There were all of these different things. They were selling dice and mats and counters and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Were they playing 5th edition D&D? Is that what you're talking
about? They were just
selling
tabletop stuff, and that's really what the application is for this. It's just RPG tabletop kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they were buying a lot of accessories. That's really what they were spending all of their time doing, so that they can go and play, at booths or at tables or whatever at the convention. But the audience was so big that I was struck by how drawn people were to this particular thing. And I already had a good inkling that the market was huge, but I didn't know until I got back home and I started doing real market research on it, and it was explosive. I mean, the growth pattern of the tabletop market since essentially the dawn of Kickstarter is
massive.
It's massive.
Yeah,
it's
which includes Dice Throne, right?
Yeah, Dice Throne. The board game industry, tabletop is kind of the coverage of card games and board games and everything. That's just anything that's played on the table.
And so one of the things you and I talked about on Friday that I think is really interesting and immediately dovetails with what you're describing for being the kind of genesis story of Mimics Grid was that, so our team had a similar story. We started with 5th edition D&D. It was like the treatment team and like our friend Chris Shetman.
Yeah.
And we didn't get very far in it. One of the earliest problems that I had with it was having a difficulty like visualizing where on earth things were taking place, because 5th edition D&D was driven by narrative more than anything.
Yeah.
But still, when you were like hearing like a DM go through something that's happening, I'm going, can you and we were like taking out, and then later with our friend Nick Barr, he had his own RPG that he built on a universe that he had created when he was a teenager.
Yeah.
And we did that campaign for 2 years. The whole time, we did not have something like this.
Oh, really?
What we did have was mass confusion, because we just didn't, we were like grabbing like pieces of paper and like drawing like awful, and it got to the point where I was like, I really wish we had something like this to be able to like go, all right, where are we in context, in proximity, where's the bad guy, blah, blah, blah.
It's theater of the mind.
Yeah.
And I still fully support theater of the mind, but I think the annoyance of having to write on graph paper or on these mats that you've got to roll up and dry erase that wipes off whatever you put in your bag. There was just a lot of.
It becomes a mess really fast.
It's a mess, and there were a lot of little things that I wanted to solve a problem, and the mission that I decided to really drive forward with Curse Crypt was we enhance the games that we already play. So we're not building digital resources, which we could. I mean, we have the ability to do that. We're not trying to change things up. We're literally just improving what exists right now with innovation. And so this solves enough problems where I think that's the reason the Kickstarter kind of does its own thing. I don't have to market it. I don't have to advertise it. I just go, look at this crazy thing that you can draw on with anything, and it's magnetic, and it doesn't scratch up your table, and it's light, and da-da-da-da-da.
How much of that do you think is like key to the success that you've had already? Because already this has very clearly been is going to be a success. How much of one, we don't know, because I'm assuming that you're going to get way more pre-sales through Kickstarter in the next 8 days or whatever. How much do you think the dry erase factor is how much of that is a...
That's a good question. I think
not dry erase, but the like ability to like clean it and keep it whatever. And
I think it's a problem that everybody has.
Yeah.
And because it's something that everybody experiences.
Durability.
It's you know, like dishwashers before we had the jet wash, right? Everybody's dishwasher had dishes with spots on it. Everybody did. And so you didn't really have to explain it. You go, oh yeah, I have that issue. And then someone invents a product and you buy it. And I think that's the same thing with this. Everybody has to deal with staining. All the existing things stain. Magnetics do not exist in the market right now.
Oh, that's another crazy part, yeah.
Yeah, and if you're going to buy maps, you're going to buy them from the official D&D team, or you're going to buy some third-party ones. Artists are creating these maps, but they don't produce them physically, and so you print them out in a printer and tape them down to the table or whatever. There's just so many different things that have to do with
grab me some stuff to play with.
Sure.
I want to play with some toys. I totally. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but there's this. So
grass.
You and I talked on Friday, and that was the other thing that came up, because the fact that like a digital developer came up with this idea, or is like somebody with your background, right, in tech and like putting things in digital contexts constantly, like solving like physical problems through digital means is like funny to me. So one of the things we talked about on Friday was like everybody is looking to, maybe this is what you were witnessing at this Penny Arcade event, of like the return to physical experiences. Like that seems to be really, really hot right now. It's continuing to grow, of like people just being like, you know what? Yes, I can play this game through an app or whatever, but like I brought up Dice Throne. Dice Throne comes with a really clunky HP meter, right? Like of how many hit points you have. You grab this little dial and twist it in this paper, and it's totally shitty. But you know what? I would have been like really disappointed if they're like, well, go download the app and now you can, oh great, so that I can like be seeing texts and emails come through as I'm like trying to change my HP for a game that I'm playing with a physical board.
And I think they identified a way to make it easy and to not have to put a lot of your brain power into dealing with that particular thing, right? You're trying to immerse yourself, and I think you're absolutely right. Building digital products has been done, right? And you're either going to be at the top tier, the best of the best, or you're going to be in the bottom where you're doing kind of the quick one and done sort of business websites, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's happening is because everybody can do this now, we're seeing a total saturation of the market, and the community is comfortable with the fact that they use apps for everything. The civilization in general is used to that.
Yeah.
And so when you come back around to something that doesn't require as much screen time, that allows you to ponder and go back to some of your core capabilities of critical thinking and adventure and imagination and all this other stuff, it's enticing because we've intentionally stripped that out of our lives. We wanted to take that amount of effort and work out of our lives and go down to something simple where someone tells you what the story is, someone tells you exactly what's going on,
and
you just
passive
kind of
existence,
cross your eyes and move forward. And I think that's what is now happening, is that us millennials and now Gen Z and Gen X are kind of moving towards this, back to this sort of, there's this place that we can go where we can draw pictures of our characters and we can...
I appreciate you including Gen X, man. I really do.
I think so. I mean, well, it's... you're right on the edge, right?
I appreciate
you're right
you.
on the edge.
I'm constantly bridging the generations between boomers and in my work, between boomers and millennials. I'm like, I'm fluent in both languages.
I think you've only got like 4 years on me too, so I'm right on the edge. That
makes me feel happy. Like, I think that like it's a really interesting observation. Like, psychologists started calling this. I don't know who came up with this term. I should have thought about to look this up. But like, entering a state of flow, of like the inability that we have to do that because of digital devices. I think that's a big factor. Like you're talking about the way people kind of cognitively engage with an activity. Like if you're sitting here and you're focused on a board, and especially if you're trying to problem solve with these little figures and like knowing what your abilities of your little guy or your team or whatever. But if you're sitting there on a device, you're going to get constant distractions, etc. It's like removing the distraction device away from us so that we can get into that state of like really enjoying something is kind of, I think, a big part of it. Why tabletop? How does digital work that you've done in the past, how it relates to user experience? Like, has that been a factor too?
I think I can actually apply your point on flow state to that.
Yeah.
At Auxiliary, we're very aware of flow state, very, very aware of it. And the reason we are is because all of our best work comes out of that particular place. So if we're constantly interrupted, which we are by our devices, if we're constantly in the middle of, trying to concentrate but getting pulled out of it in one way or the other, we can't get there. And we found that when we play these games, we were able to, we set our devices aside and just breathe into that experience. And it was so enticing that I felt like we could be part of it. But I wanted to take kind of our approach to innovation and understanding what people are wanting and what they don't want, and how to not push ourselves into something uncomfortably, be able to make it a natural sort of roll into an idea that we've got. And that's sort of what has happened with Curse Crypt, is that this solves a problem, and it gives you additional capability that you may not need, but it's pretty nice to have. And some of the other stuff we've invented is no different. And because our approach was to try to learn new stuff, or take our capabilities out of this one place and put them into this new place, we've discovered a bunch of random technologies that nobody, I don't think, has applied to anything.
So you guys brought some of the approach that you've had as like developers. You've brought that mindset to the world of the physical, right? Like of tabletop gaming specifically. Like
effectively.
Do you think like for you guys, when you were playing tabletop role-playing games together as a team, did you find that kind of respite from the job, the day job was like actually helping the day job, as in?
Oh yeah.
You just that repair of like, if you're doing a bunch of grinding, developing on some project, and it's like, okay, sweet, let's go get the mind like brought back to like a baseline, and the playing games like this would help.
Well, you come to find that you're not, when you work together all the time, you stop being friends. I mean, you probably know that with your partners. You may be friends with your partners, and you know each other as well as you know your wife or your husband.
Right.
But you stop being able to, you lose that ability to sync up.
Yeah.
Because your interests in your real life go in different directions.
Sure.
And what's funny is when you start playing games together, any type of game really, when you start doing it as a team where you're collaborating and thinking and adventuring and all this other stuff together, you're able to bring a little bit of that back. And we can talk about adventure, we can talk about the games that we're playing and new things that we discover outside of the work sphere. And even during work, you start relating things to what you're doing together. And that's exactly what happened, and I think that's why this was so enticing to get into. Yeah. There is so much. There's so much meat there to learn and explore and discover, and the whole nerdy trope is starting to kind of fade away with a lot of the current pop culture and the new kids that are kind of moving into the stuff that we used to love.
Yeah.
Very Stranger Things.
Yeah, I was going to say, Stranger Things come to mind immediately.
Totally. Yeah. But all of this younger generation is really excited, and we're excited to go back to it because essentially our childhood until now has been digital and screens and the lack of content that we create ourselves. And so getting into this, you start doing all of that, and it's just too enticing not to jump into.
Yeah, I think to touch on something you said earlier, like you have to be very intentional about your company culture to like make sure that you have opportunities to like not just break bread, but to find some like activity that you can all like do together that everybody kind of enjoys. And board games are like awesome for that. The other thing that they do, this is back to that kind of that dichotomy between the physical and digital that we've described, especially in our work. Like we do a lot of physical media stuff too, but a lot of our time is spent doing digital media stuff. So you're on a screen, whether it's your Thunderbolt 27-inch display or it's your phone, you're constantly tethered to something that's going, look at me, respond to me, encode me, blah, 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 right? So the trying to be healthy and quite intentional about the separation between physical and digital, I think it also applies to what you were describing, which is like the public and the private. Like, yes, we all come to work, we spend a lot of time together. This is like the old Office kind of notion from the original British series, The Office, with like, you spend more time, the Tim character says like he spends more time on this bit of carpet with like all these like people who he, outside of business he doesn't really have anything to do with them, but like making that as like healthy as possible is a really good thing to do. And so like,
I think so.
One of the things we found on our recent retreat retreatment because we're very clever around here. Yeah, that's right.
You had a retreatment.
Yeah, we had a retreatment. We played.
That's great.
And Connor, Mr. Cameraman, there remembers this. We played a ton of Dice Throne, and it was so much fun.
So much fun.
That was calling it a retreat was like weird. It was really just like an opportunity to like
hang out,
eat food, drink beer, and like play Dice Throne, and get a chance to totally humiliate me, which happened one very notable time. Yeah.
Oh, really?
We played.
Dice Throne, not your skill set.
No, I was great at it until the end. The last time we played, I played the mage or whatever, the flamethrower dude or the flame guy. What is he called? Help me out here.
I have no idea.
The pyro.
The pyro.
Thank you for the assist, Connor. Played the pyro, and I was like, as a MMORPG nerds would say, I was like too squishy, and I just got like flicked off the game in like the first 2 rounds. Or first 3, I think I missed the number of rounds that like they have a special rule for the pyro that if you get killed really fast, they let you like reset because he's
get like a regen.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I just missed it. But anyways, I was out very fast.
We've kind of in playing this game, you kind of you can choose. You're either going to be very RPG. Usually, people are really RPG, or they're really structured and powerful. And there is a middle ground, but people tend to go in either direction.
What do you mean by that? In terms of use of the Mimics grid?
No, in terms of characters in D&D and RPG games. Generally, you kind of see that people tend to move in one direction.
The style of their approach or whatever.
And I think what's happened with the Gen Z is that they're very much into role-playing games. Not even like role-playing games, but just role-playing in general. Things like there's entire communities, and I didn't realize that they were this far down the path, but my kids will play Overwatch, and they won't play Overwatch. They'll go into just a random room or a random game and not fight at all. They have an agreement, and they all just talk
and do the Second Life kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or they'll do it with Undertale, and there's tons of new platforms. And I think this whole generation is now. My kids are 15, and they're super into it. So they're moving into kind of this category where, we have a player in the game that I run, and she prefers to just role play. She doesn't want to be,
super competitive.
Yeah, I'm looking for the words on the tip of my tongue. She doesn't want to be essentially like the perfect fighter, right? She wants to have flaws and be able to talk to them and talk about her backstory and go into some of these deeper details.
Yeah.
And it's interesting and it's fresh. And I think a lot of the stuff that helps to enable that is being able to go, oh yeah, hey, you could buy, we have an entire dungeon set, or we have, we have this one that's really kind of neat. It's this whole springtime set by this artist called CZE Piku, and it's pretty. It's not a fighting kind of area. It's like a temple and pink trees and all sorts of interesting stuff that goes with this.
Do you remember the age? I'm sure there's some version of this now. I know there is actually, but Machinima. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sounds kind of like what you were describing with because like I understand that impulse. Like I like being in the environment of Overwatch.
Yeah.
But as Connor can once again attest, like the time it was going to take to become even passably decent at that game, I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
It's like playing Call of Duty. Oh yeah, you drag me into it, I'm just going to die repeatedly.
And I was a very, very bad professional Quake 3 player when I owned a video game store back in the day, and still. Your abilities in video gaming, I hate to be the one to admit this, but it's true. They do decline. Like I'm not the type of player I was. Even if I did put the time in, I think there'd be diminishing returns pretty quickly. But being in that, the environment's awesome. I mean, I like being part of it. I think that's the other thing about like what you're describing is like these people are, and it's rad that it's happening. Maybe it's the digital. People are just getting so saturated with it that we talked about it on the phone. People who are born with this technology, they treat physical experiences like tabletop gaming, etc., with the novelty that we used to treat Nintendo's.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when I was 10 years old, the NES launched. Mind completely melted.
Yeah.
Like sitting in bed with the little unofficial guide to NES games.
Yeah.
Like memorizing maps for games that I to this day never even ended up playing.
Oh yeah, reading every page of a book
because I was preparing myself.
Every single page.
Preparing myself for digital experiences ultimately. Yeah. I'm going to go sit there with a controller, blah, blah, blah. Now it's almost the opposite. You'll see kids on Reddit, they'll be on Threads, they'll be on wherever, all in prep for gearing up to play tabletop physical experience-based games. So
that's right. It's incredible.
So I'm trying to say is I'm jealous that you did this. Damn it, I should have. It's really clever. I'm going to make sure that I'm not leaving anything out that I know we wanted to chat about.
It's really funny how many times we've heard that same thing. You'll post something and you'll see a series of comments, and inevitably there's one that Oh, I thought of that before when I was younger. Like, yeah. I mean, and that's maybe that's the reason
well,
that
good,
it was
good
easy.
job are you for doing it, because I know I'm actually I'm listening to the it's an old book that was written by the founders of Basecamp back in 2010.
It's a
Rework.
rework.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like one of the, and it's become a platitude at this point, but like
kind of books, yeah.
people love to talk about the things that I had that idea. Yeah, you sure did. You did a lot with it. But that's all part of, I think, also it's related to this conversation around overuse of digital media. It's like it creates like a inertia and laziness. Like
it really does, and I think that's my team. My team is interesting because we have a pretty big group, but the core guys out of auxiliary, Ian and Elliot.
yeah.
You know, we were trying to get to this, and the thing is that your life and work and everything gets in the way. But my personality tends to be, I see I get that feeling, I get the hairs in the back of my neck stand up, and I just run at it. And sometimes to a fault, you know, where it's obnoxious for other people because they're like, "Can you slow down? You're stressing us out," or we're getting left behind a little bit. And that happens.
I've never
unfortunately.
gone through that.
Never once. and it's a problem. I mean, you know, but the thing is when I get that feeling, I kind of feel as though there's something there, and if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it. And frankly, someone else probably would have done it, or is in the middle of doing it, and I just beat them to it.
Yeah.
Because I had the ability to execute on it. And I think where this succeeds is not necessarily the fact that this is a thing.
Yeah.
I think where it succeeds is all the other stuff that we're doing that's associated with it.
Yeah. Let's get into some of the nerdiness.
Sure.
Like in the details, because that's really
Yeah.
key to this conversation.
Yeah, totally.
So the team, you mentioned auxiliary, you mentioned Ian and Elliot. Who's part of this? Who's part of this team? And then you have another, your kind of co-founder role person. So tell me who's part of it.
Sure. So I have Ian, Elliot, Greg, and I kicked this off. Greg was there I've known Greg for many, many years. We used to run a comic convention together back in the day.
Is Greg in Spokane?
He is.
Okay.
Yeah, he moved up to Spokane about 2 years ago.
Where from?
Yeah, from Albuquerque.
Okay, gotcha. Nice.
Yeah. And so Greg moved up here, and we had talked a lot about.
You said a couple years ago?
Yeah, it was about
right
2
around
years
the time
ago.
that Breaking Bad finale. So
it was. I think it was about a year.
may
after
or may
that,
not
yeah,
be one of Walter White's lieutenants.
Yeah.
I'm putting this up for the camera just to see.
Nice.
Cursed Crypt.
Yeah.
It's a rad mark. Who did the mark?
Me.
You son of
Got a
gun.
little design background in me.
You got some skills, man.
And so Greg and I were at PAX when a lot of that stuff fleshed out, and then Ian, Elliot, and I kicked the thing off officially, and we effectively just put some of auxiliary dollars and our own capital into it to get the first prototypes done. And what's interesting about those first prototypes is they really weren't complicated. This is aluminum, and the hard part was figuring out how to fold, because folding 26 gauge metal is really tough because especially if it has holes in it.
Are you manufacturing this locally? Mm-hmm. No, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because that's a definite distinguishing characteristic. Because most of the stuff you end up having to build it out of country even.
I do have to outsource a couple things because they're just really expensive, but we're working on how to take it over, and I could actually kind of explain that. It's really interesting. But anyway, yeah, so we kicked it off, and I effectively ran at it while doing auxiliary.
Yeah.
And after a period of time, we received our first prototypes back, and we decided, I thought I had them, we decided, okay, well, this is something that we definitely need to try just to accomplish because they felt so good.
Yeah.
And then effectively I changed over to being the CEO of Cursed Crypt and gave auxiliary Ian took auxiliary. He's super duper capable, and most of the stuff we've been doing is kind of based on his knowledge and thinking. So it was a really good handoff, kind of take the leadership and put it where it needs to go, and then I just ran with it.
And what revision of prototype am I looking at?
This is 2, and 3 is in production right this very second. So this is.
I know it already looks like I can see it's getting.
It's
gonna get radder every time.
This is the.
And this is the one the Kickstarter. What is wrong with me? The reward people. What do you call them?
The backers.
The backers. Thank you.
This is the official, and we already knew that this was what we were going to do. We didn't want to spend a bunch of time and money on it right away.
Gotcha.
But my manufacturers, everybody already had everything ready to go before we even kicked off the Kickstarter.
Gotcha.
And we had already tested that. Funny enough, we changed the way that we do the coatings on it. So the coating on this is very specific, and I can't really get into too many details on it, but we changed it so it'd be more white.
Or you'd have to kill me.
Yeah, because you can see like there's some cracks and stuff across the edge, and we were able to get rid of all of that and improve all of this and make it whiter and improve the.
I was gonna say it looks like it's had like crest white strips.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It's really sexy and delicious.
We tested that with this.
It's about all. You're almost the color of my skin. I'm not sure.
It's close.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you actually might have a couple shades lighter.
Other than Conan O'Brien, I might be the palest human being on the planet.
Yeah,
or maybe you. I think we could.
I'm pretty white.
Looking, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna do nerdy speed round because I want to make sure that we get good information for you, for anybody who's like on the fence about whether or not they should at least be an early backer so that they can see what's down the road, because you've like annihilated your original goal. You're now into like, I'm not sure which stretch goal, but part of the idea here is like just to set the kind of the landscape, haha, pun intended, of the stuff that we're looking at here. You have the generic grid itself, which for what I was describing earlier is like, I don't care if it's stick figures for now. You can draw a marker spot for where I am at right now. Where's the monster? How many steps do I need to take? How many turns am I away from getting to the monster? Or can I get to my teammate who's down and injured or whatever? So that's what you can get for the super baseline, like the minimum viable product here, right?
Totally.
Then there's terrain, which is I'm holding here. There's these little pieces that are magnetized that have certain textures and characteristics and features. And then of course you have your little figures and stuff. So
we're not selling any of the miniatures.
Totally.
But we are
because that's a normal.
Everybody's got them.
Totally.
And there's tons of really great ones out there. If we get into that market, the only reason we would do it is to improve upon it.
Gotcha.
To make it
but
easier or better.
Landscape and terrain, you guys are gonna.
Yeah, so we're partnering with artists. The way that we've decided to approach this is that there are tons of really incredible cartographers and map artists out there. And so we've approached them and said, hey, would you like to produce maps for our platform? Or design them. We'll produce them physically, and they receive 50% of the gross margin on everything that we sell that's associated with their artwork.
Wow.
And so that's the long-term strategy here. Artists will continue working with artists and continue producing sets. We're going to take these in-house. That's the intent, is to do all the printing and all the die cutting and all the injection molding in shop.
For the landscape pieces.
For the landscape and some of the other stuff that we've got that's really crazy. Like we have 3D walls and things like that are going to be announced shortly. But we're taking all of that stuff in-house, and the only things that we would outsource would be the things that are incredibly difficult to produce or unreasonably expensive in the United States.
Yeah, gotcha.
Like the intent is to take this and do this here instead of in China.
Yeah.
So the only thing that's happening in China is the neoprene cutting, which I could do locally if I want, and the inner framework of this, and the rest is all local.
Gotcha.
And it goes through a crazy QC process through us and SciTech.
And you guys are still okay on margins and all that? You feel good about it?
There's a lot of positive to say there.
I remember that came up with the Dice Your Own thing. I remember back early on, those guys were getting asked, are you making this in the USA? And they were like, yeah, sweet. If we want to take a $30 loss on every board we sell, we could do that. It was pretty brutal.
We are actually taking a little bit of a hit. I decided about 3 weeks ago with my team that we were going to go towards the nicer grids, because we can produce these. They're pre-whitened essentially, and they turn yellow when you bake them. But I made the call that I wanted if you were to buy more of these, I wanted them all to be the same color. And I wanted all of them to have the same, like, really nice edges and quality. I want you to pick it up and go, this is nuts, because you're never going to replace these. That's the idea.
Totally.
You should be able to buy this one, and then 6 months later, a year later, 3 years later, buy another set that's identical to it.
Yeah.
And so once this is my final revision, that's my final revision.
Okay.
You were asking about the miniatures. We provide
magnets.
8 magnets, and the cost is great for the end user compared to what you pay. Right now, you pay like $1 a magnet in the U.S., and so we get a really great price on these and have made it reasonable for the backers and consumers. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And we'll sell a whole set of them. There's square ones and all sorts of stuff.
Okay, so you're at 55 grand out of 30 that you tried to get. You have 9 days to go on it.
Yeah.
You have how many people watching it, including treatment?
It's like 1,500 followers. It's a crazy amount. Yeah.
That have not yet.
That are just following.
And I have no idea how this works. I'm sure there are metrics on this, but you're going to get a lot of conversions in day 3, 2, 1, whatever, right?
We're
presumably
hoping. Yeah, we're hoping, and we have some really nuts announcements.
Because I'd assume that when you have a brand new company, its first ever like Kickstarter campaign, there's a ton of like, prove it. Which is awful for you guys, but you're past that phase because you did it.
I think so.
So now all those people, I would have guessed that you'd have a pretty naturally high rate of like conversion for those people who are like, well, yeah, it's backed. Of course I'm going to do it.
And that's the unfortunate part about Kickstarter is that you kind of the human instinct is to see if to prove it, but what that does is make it take longer to get to that point where
of course
there's validity.
It sucks,
and
yeah.
so it kind of kills us. But we got over that in 10 days or so.
Yeah.
And so that was nice. And then it's all just how do we improve the photos? How do we improve the graphics? How do we communicate what we're doing to the community? How do we make better stretch goals for everybody? And so the first stretch goal was the hex and the blanks. The second stretch goal is dungeon pieces, which are pretty much kind of do it yourself, build your own dungeon. And that's all being designed by the Cursed Crypt team. And the next one, which we haven't announced yet, but we probably will today, is the Goblin Glass.
What on earth?
Essentially, we have... Yeah, we're calling it Goblin Glass.
Which is like your looks standard rule paper, it looks like, 3-ring binder.
And then on the other side, I need to wipe that off a little bit better. On the other side is graph paper. And it fits inside of your binder, and it has the exact same properties.
Goblin Glass.
Yeah.
I like what you
so
did
all
there.
of our products have a name that's like a monster or an artifact name because everything comes from the Cursed Crypt. And the Cursed Crypt is essentially like the Twilight Zone or Black Mirror. It's a place that derives stories and adventures, and so when something comes out of the Cursed Crypt, it's designed to make more stories that can be told and shared, and that's kind of the intent of the Cursed
Gotcha.
Crypt.
So the company itself has its own narrative universe?
Effectively.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, and so we wanted to make sure that everything that comes out has sort of a creature, monster, or artifact or name, but this has all the exact same properties as the grids.
Yeah.
So you can
Doodle with a Sharpie.
You can draw or write on it, and then if you take the dry erase, same exact properties, right? So we can put some of this down, and then what you get out of that is the ability to wipe off.
You have a vial of blood that you can.
Yeah, and then you say the words, and make sure you draw the pentagram on the ground.
Exactly.
And then it wipes off, and that's the effect, and it doesn't stain.
But like real talk, nobody should come on. I mean, I love that you could. I saw the thing. I watched the video where you can use all manner of things.
Yeah.
Just use a dry erase marker and save yourself the blood, sweat, and tears of like having to make it wet erase.
Well, I think that.
Although it is cool to know that if any jackass does use a Sharpie, that it's not like a permanent failure, right?
Well, that's the point. Is that you?
It's not your blue screen of death for your Mimics grid.
Totally, but the idea is that you draw on it and then throw it in your bag, and then you go to your game. And if you're drawing little add-ons and things,
that is okay. That's actually
because dry erase comes off.
That makes a ton of sense.
No matter what you do.
So based on what you just did there, if you did Sharpie for like this is the goalposts and the battle lines, and here's where the permanent kind of fixtures of things. Then somebody dry erases, and then you can get rid of that easily.
Yeah. So you can
that's
do
actually very valuable.
Yeah, initiative tracking, all of that, and if you wanted to use color. You have the ability to do that. Like this is a Copic marker, and it'll stay on. The only thing that wipes off easily really is the wet erase and the dry erase. The wet erase takes a little longer to dry.
Yeah.
And so what we've discovered is that even UV pens, there's some crazy stuff you can do with UV pens. Like you draw down a dungeon and then draw like hidden traps and ghosts and turn a light on, and they show up.
Okay.
So lots and lots. That's the kind of the crazy thing about this.
There's much more coming.
Tons of stuff.
You guys are going to recoup, satisfy all your orders, etc., and then you're going to come out with another. I'm assuming another Kickstarter campaign for another product in the future.
We're not sure
how you'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of businesses like ours like to do consistent Kickstarters.
Yeah.
It builds your audience, but the thing that we're looking at is we're trying to build this kind of durable business that allows artists and designers to come in and make products and us to fulfill those products and make a nice huge world of things for people to purchase for these and improve on these and everything else that goes with it, because the accessories are ridiculous. I've got aerial stands and walls, yada yada yada. And so we're going to really just work hard to make it a great tool for you to continue buying the things that you need for your games. Whether we come back for another Kickstarter, I mean, I've got too many ideas.
To be determined.
It's to be determined, but we've got a giant clock on the wall for delivery, and I mean, I produced these in 2 days. So,
Rad.
So we're in a good spot to execute, and yeah, move forward from there.
Well, congrats, man. It's awesome.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you. Zach Shallbetter, it's called Cursed. The company's called Cursed Crypt. The product's called Mimics Grid. It's on Kickstarter. We'll put a link in our, I'm sure we'll put this on Facebook or wherever, and then people can just follow the link and and support it. Well, I'm going to try to turn this around so that you can get last minute people from even locally or wherever.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I believe that's on us, the community stuff. We're super involved, but
Love it.
I got to push.
Sweet dude.
Thanks again.
Okay, brother.
Appreciate it.